comply with our orders.
I don't have to comply with your orders.
Yes, you do.
No, I do not.
Yes, sir.
I do not.
Okay, so what are we going to do here?
We're going to have a gunfight on the side of the road is what we're going to have.
We do not need to have a gunfight
well,
on the side of the road.
Then you better start listening to sense.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Southern Draw Law. My name is James White, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, former police officer. More than likely, if you've been watching law enforcement interaction videos on YouTube for any period of time at all, you've probably seen the interaction that was at the beginning of this video. And I remember seeing it a couple years back. It actually first came out in November of 2022, November 10th. And I remember seeing it back then and thinking, that is a pretty brazen approach to take with law enforcement. And I thought, wow, I did not expect that to go that way. And then I saw it again a couple months back, and it started making its rounds. And it was on a major channel within this space. And I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm not trying to do anything other than to suggest that the video got almost 1 million views, probably over 1 million views now, on a major channel within this space. And I thought, I wonder whatever happened to that guy, because the story just ends there. There's no follow-up. There's no nothing. And I thought, surely these officers did not let that encounter end the way it ended on his video. So if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, there's a guy named Frank Berris, B-E-R-R-I-S, out of Casper, Wyoming. And he was stopped by the Wyoming Highway Patrol and the Natrona County Sheriff's Office back on November 9th of 2022. He was stopped for speeding. And then he had this very tense exchange with these two officers on the side of the road. So what I want to do, just so you have full context, is to show the video. I've edited it heavily because it's a 21-minute video, and you get the gist of what's going on here. He's going to refuse to get out of the vehicle, and he's going to cite his belief system, and then we're going to see how it ends. But there's more to this story than what you're going to see on this video. So we're going to watch the video, and then we'll come back and talk about what actually happened afterwards and why this might be a cautionary tale about not having a full understanding of reality when it comes to law enforcement. So let's check it out.
So your idea on solving this, being you have no authority or jurisdiction over me, is for me to get out of my private automobile and talk about what I just told you.
And you can show me your passport.
You got my passport, dude.
I don't have your passport.
Those gentlemen do have my passport. The Highway Patrol do.
Okay.
Highway Patrol, how about bring the passport so I can read it to the sheriff? Could you be so kind?
So, if you come out and explain to me your passport, I'll hear your side of it.
You've already heard my side. I've already told you my side.
Well, you can explain your passport to me.
I don't need to explain it. You should know this as a LEO, shouldn't you?
I've never seen your passport.
Well, then, I don't know what to tell you. We'll sit here all goddamn night. But I am not getting out of this goddamn private automobile to explain myself that I've already done. I'm asserting my rights to travel, and I'm informing you that you have no jurisdiction or authority over me. And you're not trying to accept it. Ask the guy to pull me over to get it. I'll show it to you. It's real simple. This is real simple. You're making it difficult.
I don't feel that I am.
Well,
that I'm the one making it difficult right now.
Right, because I won't do what you ask. I don't have to do what you ask. You have zero authority over me. I don't contract with foreign corporations. No authority, no jurisdiction. There's nothing in any law.
How's it a contract for you to get out of your vehicle and explain your passport to me?
I don't need to do any of that. I'm trying to explain to you, I don't need to do any of that.
I'm not saying you're...
Go get the passport, bud, and I will read it to you.
I was asking you to do
I am asking you to go get my passport, and I will read it to you. How about that? That makes all kinds of sense, but you ain't ready for that, are you?
We're in a bind then.
Okay, we're in a bind.
I want you to get out and explain it to me.
I'm not getting out of this private automobile. Not happening. Not happening. So ask them gentlemen politely, sirs, highway patrolmen, may I please have my passport to read to the sheriff?
they're not going to give it back to you until...
They're not going to give it back to me. So you're telling me the Highway Patrol in Wyoming has stole my private property. Is that what you guys are telling me?
You can claim...
No, it's not a claim, sir. That's another matter of fact of law. Does that passport belong to any of you? Does that passport belong to any of you? The answer is no. And if you're not giving that back to me, which is my said possession, what is that called? What's that called? As LEOs, you should know what that's...
Let me know.
That's called theft. Okay? So, young man, may I have my passport, please, to read to the sheriff?
Okay, the only way you're getting your passport is once you step out of this vehicle.
Why do you want me out of this vehicle so bad, you guys?
Because there is state law, case law, Pennsylvania versus...
Case law is not law. That's where you're wrong again. Case law ain't law. Not even close. What you guys need to do is understand that I am correct. You have no authority over me. None. I don't have to get out of this private automobile. I don't have to obey your corporate bylaw speed limits.
Okay, let me just explain this to you. You're not leaving here until you step out of the vehicle.
Then I ain't leaving. I am not going anywhere. And your threats don't mean jack to me, bud.
Well, it's not a threat.
To hell if it ain't. You're threatening me to get out of this vehicle so you can try and kidnap me. Meanwhile, you've stolen my property, and you can't even admit that.
It's the property of the United States government, actually, sir.
No, it is not.
Yes, sir.
What is possession?
It is property.
What is possession, sir?
I'm not going to argue with you, sir.
I know you can't argue with me because you don't know the law. Possession is 9/10 of it, correct?
All I said was... All I said...
Perfect example of how none of this really makes sense, because if possession was 9/10 of the law and whoever possessed the passport became the owner of said passport, then him having it not in his possession and it being in the possession of the Highway Patrol would mean that it is actually their property. So again, these guys, everybody's heated and nobody's making any sense. But, you know, this guy thinks he's scoring points, but he's actually making just ridiculous, nonsensical.
I stopped you. I didn't say you're getting a ticket. I never said you're getting a ticket. I just want you to step out so we can talk face to face.
We are talking face to face.
Out of your vehicle.
No, I'm not getting out of my private automobile. This ain't a vehicle. Okay?
What is it then?
It's a private automobile. Actually, Congress passed a law July 8th of this year that nobody in the United States needs a driver license unless they're dealing in commerce. Have you all been informed of that?
I missed that one.
Well, of course, because you guys are revenuers for a foreign corporation running under statutes and codes. None of you have ever studied the law.
So Congress did no such thing, and Congress does not have the authority to invalidate the several states' ability to regulate driver's licenses or registrations or any of that. That's just more of him saying things and putting them out into the ether, hoping that the police won't know and they'll just back down. But it didn't actually happen, for one, and it couldn't happen because they don't have the authority to regulate the state's regulatory schemes.
So just admit that you don't have authority over me, hand me my passport, and say I'm sorry for impeding your travel.
What do I need to give you to get you out of your vehicle?
Nothing. You ain't getting me out of this private automobile.
Okay.
These here, would you like to read that? That's what you're doing. 241, 242. And you read my passport and you didn't let me go. So we're looking at 1.6 million on commercial liens. I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to do it to anybody.
Okay.
All right, sir, what's your last name?
Barris, B-E-R-R-I-S.
B-E-R-R-I-S. Okay.
It's in the passport you stole.
Okay, we didn't steal your passport.
Well, then may I have my passport back?
You'll get everything back. What I need you to do, okay, so I'm going to tell you. Okay, so you're driving without a driver's license, you were speeding, you don't have plates on your vehicle. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I need you to get out of the vehicle to chat with us. Otherwise, I'm going to ask you to get out of the car. So right now I'm asking you, will you please get out of the car and speak with us?
No, I will not.
Okay, I'm going to tell you to get out of the car. You need to get out of the car right now.
You're being recorded.
That's fine.
Okay. And under what authority are you demanding an American state national to get out of this vehicle when I don't have to prove any kind of I am not in your corporate bylaws. I don't
Okay,
need
that's
driver's
fine, sir.
licenses.
That's fine. I respect your beliefs, but you
It's
have to
not a
respect ours
belief,
as
you
well.
guys.
Okay,
This ain't
so
beliefs.
This next time, I'm going to make you get out of the car. What that means, I'm going to break the window, unlock the vehicle, and pull you out. Understand?
Don't
Unless you
do
get
that.
out.
Don't do that.
Okay, I'm telling you.
I am telling you, if you do that, this is going to go south quick. Okay?
I don't want it to go south.
Well,
What I'm
don't
telling
be
you-
f***ing breaking into my private property
Then
or
help us
stealing
out.
my private property.
Okay, then help us out, sir.
I've already helped you. I've educated you about the law, but you're not listening. You're not accepting the facts, okay?
Okay, we're not
Now, I'm
accepting
going
the
to
facts.
ask you one more time. I would like my passport back. I would like to get on my way. I have critters with water freezing.
I understand
really
that.
don't have time for this.
Okay, sir. I'm telling you, if we have to, we will break the window, unlock the vehicle, and pull you out. Do you want it to get to that, or do you want to come out and talk to us?
Okay, so you're threatening to break my private property.
I'm telling you that
And
I have
do you know
authority
under the
to take
law-
you out of this vehicle if you do not comply with our orders.
I don't have to comply with your orders.
Yes, you do. In
No,
this
I do
situation, you
not.
Yes, sir.
I do not.
Okay, so what are we going to do here?
We're going to have a gunfight on the side of the road is what we're going to have.
We do not need to have a gun.
Well,
on the
then
side of the
then
road.
you better start listening to sense.
You need to start listening.
No, sir. I do not need to listen to an agent of a foreign corporation.
Okay.
Okay? I asked you guys to go back there and call somebody in town that actually knows the law.
Who's this person in town that knows the law?
Apparently somebody. I would try with John Harlan as the sheriff and ask
John Harlan. Okay.
him.
Okay, well, we have a representative of the sheriff's office right here. And he was talking to you.
I know, but that don't mean he knows the actual law.
Look, I'm not trying to get anybody riled up, and I apologize for doing that. What I'm trying to do is find an ending to this that's civil for both of us.
Here's the simple ending. You guys admit that you have no authority over
We
me.
can't do that, sir.
Well, I'm sorry you can't do that.
Okay.
But I am not going to allow you to violate my rights to travel. I will not allow you to damage my private property.
Okay, I don't
Okay?
wanna
I'm
damage your
telling you
private
right now.
I don't want to damage your private property. That's
I-
what I'm saying.
Right.
I don't want to at all.
Okay.
All I want you to do is get out of the vehicle so we can talk. That's it. That is it. And I won't damage your private property. Nothing. That's
Not
it.
happening.
Okay.
I don't have to get out of this vehicle.
Okay, so why are we coming to this? Why are we butting heads there? Why don't you want
Because
to get
you guys are not listening to the matter of fact of law. That's why.
out? To the matter of fact of law.
It's called the matter of fact.
Okay.
The fact of that matter is you have zero authority over me. Where I'm going to travel, how I'm going to do it, what I'm going to do it in, and what placards I place on said private automobile.
Okay.
Okay?
Just give me 1 second, okay?
This ain't going
Why
to...
are you threatening to get in a gunfight, Frank?
Because I'm not going to allow them to violate my shit, dude. I'm not allowing them to violate my right to travel freely and damage my private property because I won't listen to a so-called authority that has none over me? Really? And I've explained myself over and over? There ain't nothing to talk about. There's nobody to talk to about anything. What is there to talk to? You guys not admitting that you have no authority over me? Is that what it is?
You said you wanted to talk to Sheriff Harlan.
I don't want to talk to Sheriff. I've already talked to him. I've talked to all your judges, your state's attorneys. State's attorneys know. I sent them cease and desist. Shit disappeared. Why? Because I know the law.
Okay.
This is absolutely ludicrous. This is supposed to be America? Where's my right to travel freely, you guys?
Well,
Where's
we'll
that at right
we'll make
now?
some phone calls and see what we can do here, okay?
Well, common sense should prevail. And I'm counting on the sheriff's department for that.
Okay.
So now we're all back there having a powwow. Yes, sir. Can I do for you?
All right, sir. Here's your passport back. Can you roll it down a little bit further? You just want me to slide it in there?
Just slide her in here.
Okay. So this is back. Did you already pull those out? Okay. Free to go for now. Okay.
What'd you do to my car?
We didn't do anything to your car.
Okay, I got it on film here.
Okay.
There's nothing sabotaged on my private vehicle.
There's nothing sabotaged on your vehicle.
All right. So you guys have a nice day.
Okay.
See you around. See you around.
What happened after that encounter that we just watched, as you might imagine, is that the police just said, you know what, this is not worth dying on the side of the road over. We're just going to go get a warrant on him. And they already had warrants that they were trying to serve anyway. That was the whole purpose of asking him to get out of the vehicle, was to try to get him out so they could arrest him on the warrant. So he had a very good feeling about what was happening. And that's why he made reference to them trying to kidnap him and remove him from his private automobile and all that stuff. And so they go back, they get a warrant, and they basically write a warrant for him driving without a driver's license and all this stuff. So they served the warrant on him, and they ended up ultimately charging him with aggravated assault because after he made the comment about we're going to have a gunfight on the side of the road, he allegedly lifted up his shirt and showed a pistol. Well, they really didn't have much of a chance of convicting him of anything to do with that pistol because firearm has a very specific definition under the law. And because of the fact that the officers chose to let him go, they weren't able to actually collect the firearm. So there was no way to prove whether it was a BB gun or an airsoft gun or whether it was a firearm or whatever. And so in most cases, you have to prove that in order to be guilty of aggravated assault, that you had to do a thing with a firearm that intended to cause an apprehension in the person that they were going to be shot. But again, you got to keep in mind that Mr. Barris didn't threaten to shoot them. He just said, if you drag me out of this vehicle and you break into my private automobile, we're going to have a gunfight. In other words, I'm going to defend myself. But it's conditional. It's conditioned upon you doing the thing that I've told you not to do. And so it's not a direct or immediate threat. It's not a threat in any way as long as they don't do what he told them would cause the consequence, right? So it's really not a case that could have been proven from a proof beyond a reasonable doubt perspective. It just wasn't. And so what happened was in July of 2023, he ends up going to trial representing himself, and he gets acquitted by the judge. He had a bench trial, which means there was no jury. He just, put on his case in front of the judge, and he had a bench trial, and he was acquitted. And so he went on to YouTube and he made this video that talked about how, this judge was, he was really happy with this judge and all this stuff. And so then he starts going through about how this judge basically saw things his way. Well, Judge Catherine Wilking out of Wyoming wrote an opinion, and listen to him recite her opinion on this case. And you tell me whether you think she was saying that he was correct or whether she was saying what I just said, which is that there's, under the circumstances, no way the state could actually prove the case. See, it's not about whether or not you see the law the same way in the court of law. It's whether or not the state can meet its burden. Its burden is to prove that you did things that are violations of law that have very specific elements under the law and prove those things beyond a reasonable doubt. And when you don't have evidence because you decided that your life was more important than to shoot it out with this guy who, in my opinion, absolutely would have done everything he possibly could to make sure that he left that encounter and they did not, if they had broken into his private automobile. And I believe that they made a wise decision in that situation because I think that he was not joking. He was as serious as a person can be. And I believe that he believes this so much that he would be willing to give his life on the side of the road. And that's his prerogative. He can believe whatever he wants. But I want you to listen to what he has to say and how he characterizes her opinion. Let's check it out.
Got done with the trial last week, and then we had to come in today at 1:30 this afternoon to get the court ruling on the trial. So it started out, the judge, Catherine Wilking is this woman's name, cannot say enough about this woman. Absolutely living out of her heart chakra, has no ego. She started out by reading her ruling by saying stuff like the state of Wyoming. I got the papers here. I just got home. It said the defendant's position. Mr. Barris submitted several filings to this court as well as in the Toronto County Clerk's office. His contentions were without merit, and his theories and positions are not established law in this court or anywhere in this country's valid legal system. Mr. Barris identifies himself as a state national and has consistently and passionately argued that the actions of the law enforcement officers, the district attorney's office, and this court do not apply to him because of his self-proclaimed status. his passion for his beliefs does not make them a reality. Mr. Barris, like all individuals in the United States, is subject to laws of the jurisdiction in which he resides, and his purported status as a state national does not enable him to violate those laws without consequence. Well, anybody that knows anything about taking back your natural birth rights knows that we're not here to violate any laws. We're just here to stand up for the ones that were stolen from us in our cribs, okay? So basically, I think she had to say this to not shut down the whole court system, but she ended up ruling that I was not guilty on both charges. The state has failed, because this was the whole thing she read. The state has failed to meet its burden of proof on count 1 and count 2. The court finds the defendant not guilty on count 1 and count 2. It is hereby ordered that any bond posted herein is discharged and exonerated. July 19, 2023, Catherine Wilkie. Bless this woman. Pretty much what she was saying is that, like, the state of Wyoming might not recognize my status, but I think I handed in and showed her enough paperwork, and she knows there's some validity to what I've done, and 35 million other Americans that's taken back their natural birthrights.
Okay, so I don't know. I didn't hear the judge's language say what he thought it meant. It's like this guy's playing adult peekaboo. He hears one thing, and it's just the same thing as him thinking that he won that encounter on the side of the road. He didn't win that encounter. He just postponed the inevitable, which is that he's going to get stopped. Not only is he going to get stopped and arrested eventually, but he's going to get stopped and arrested, and the police are going to remember him. And so this judge renders an opinion that basically invalidates his entire belief system. And he's like, she had to say that, or otherwise she would have toppled the whole court system. This is a completely delusional person. And the problem that I have with cases like this, and people can believe whatever they want to believe, but they're citing cases for one, they say the law doesn't apply to them, but they go out and find cases like Thompson versus Smith from 1930, guys, in Virginia, the Supreme Court of Virginia. So you couldn't find any case on point since 1930. And you can only find a case that happened before they started creating regulation schemes for driver's licenses and license plates, and before automobiles were ubiquitous and only applicable to the state of Virginia. And that is your claim to support this idea that you have a right to travel in a automobile? Guys, you can believe whatever you want. And I've hesitated about making this video because I really care about my audience. I don't want to alienate people in my audience. And I know, because I see the comments, that people genuinely believe this garbage, and it's not true. The UCC does not apply to anything to do with traveling or driver's licenses or any of that stuff. And I'm going to show you a scenario where all this crap that people believe about the UCC and filing fraudulent liens and all this stuff also backfires. So I just want to draw your attention to what happened to Mr. Barris here. So after this acquittal in July of 2023, Mr. Barris is stopped multiple other times. So the last time that he was stopped was February 3rd of 2024. And so he ends up getting stopped. He gets arrested by the Wyoming Highway Patrol. And this time what they did was they took him into custody and they towed his vehicle. And when they towed his vehicle, they towed it to some government facility where they held onto it and then executed a search warrant. So now he's beaten the roadside debate that he had with the Highway Patrol. He's beaten the state charges in state court. But turns out Mr. Barris is a multiple-time convicted felon. Again, I'm doing the research because I'm trying to figure out what actually happened to this guy. Because what I'm afraid of is that people are going to look at this and think, I'm going to do that. And my concern is that if you do that, or somebody else does that, that they're not going to be able to walk away from the encounter. And even if they do, they're going to end up like Mr. Barris. So let's go through and figure out what happened to Mr. Barris. So I was able to find a document that was filed by an ATF agent, Crystal Stevenson, and we're going to look through this affidavit that she ends up filing. And this is leading up to a federal prosecution, as you might imagine. So she says, Crystal Stevenson, am a special agent in the United States Department of Justice, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. So she goes through and she tells the story, basically how we got here. On November 9th, he was stopped by Trooper Bryant for speeding. And basically she goes through this entire traffic stop. Barris continued to be uncooperative with law enforcement, refused to exit his vehicle. Barris was informed that if he refused to exit, he would be forcibly removed. Barris stated, "I'm telling you, if you do that, this is going to go south quick," further stating, "We're going to have a gunfight on the side of the road." So remember, this is the traffic stop that is the subject of the video that we're watching. She's referencing back to it some 18 months later, telling the story as to how we got here, right? Because they don't forget. He stopped again December 15th, 2022. Deputy Phillips pulls Barris over for speeding and ultimately arrests him for the warrant out of Natrona County from the encounter that we saw the video from. Then we work our way all the way through, and ultimately he ends up beating the charges in July of 2023. We know that. But if we roll down here to paragraph 12, it says on February 3rd, 2024, at approximately 7:45, Wyoming Highway Patrol Trooper Kyle O'Malley conducted a traffic stop on a 2013 black Ford Explorer bearing plates United States of America, Republic, Diplomat, Foreign National, and UCC 1-308. When Trooper O'Malley approached the vehicle, Barris identified himself, told Trooper O'Malley that he was a sovereign citizen, and provided a passport card as a form of identification. Now, I have been educated by a person that I prosecuted, and he explained to me in a very clear and understandable and very convincing way that sovereign citizen, the term, is an oxymoron, that if you're a sovereign, you can't be a citizen. Made sense to me. So I generally don't refer to people as that. I think this guy actually refers to himself as a United States national. So to be respectful to Mr. Barris, he's a United States national, not a sovereign citizen. But anyway, told O'Malley that the passport was his form of identification. He was the only occupant of the vehicle. O'Malley noticed what appeared to be a pistol and a holster between the driver's seat and the center console, and an AR-style rifle between the center console and the passenger seat. Trooper O'Malley also determined Barris did not have a valid driver's license or insurance on the vehicle. The vehicle was not registered. Barris was arrested, and his vehicle was towed from the location of the stop to, pay attention to this address, 900 Bryanstock Road, Casper, Wyoming. Now, keep this in mind. This is just my assumption. Barris is feeling very emboldened at this point. He has gotten out of several traffic stops. He has escaped conviction in the state system. He actually believes the judge is on his side and sees things from his perspective, but didn't want to topple the entire legal system in Wyoming. So at this point, he's not really worried about getting out of the car and complying with the orders because he thinks he's going to get out of it eventually. But this is the feds, guys. They only take cases that they can convict on. They have a 96% or above conviction rate because they can cherry pick what they know they can prove and what they can't. So they do it, generally speaking, the correct way. So what do? They take this guy into custody, they hold him on the thing that they arrested him for, and then they execute a search warrant on his vehicle at the 900 Bryanstock Road in Casper. So again, this happened on February 3rd of 2024 at 7:45 in the morning. And then on February 3rd, 2024, they put the wrong date in here. So on the same day, FBI agent J.T. Baker, along with Wyoming Highway Patrol troopers and Natrona County Sheriff's Office deputies, well, that's weird. Why wouldn't Natrona County be involved? That's really strange. Natrona was where it happened. Why would they be involved? They weren't part of this traffic stop. It was Wyoming Highway Patrol. They don't forget, guys. That's the point. So he was arrested. They execute a search warrant because, again, they're not going to go, they don't have probable cause. Remember, Arizona versus Gant says that you can only search the passenger compartment of a vehicle if you have probable cause that there'll be fruits of the crime for which the person was arrested. Well, he was arrested for not driving with a driver's license and no insurance. And so there's no fruits of those crimes that would be available in the passenger compartment of the vehicle. Now, Wyoming Highway Patrol probably has a policy on inventory searches, and they probably could have done a search of the vehicle pursuant to an inventory search, but they knew what they were doing. They were watching this road, knowing this guy travels this road. I guarantee it. They wanted this guy really bad. He'd already beat him, made him look bad several times. So they didn't fool with an inventory search. They went straight to the federal magistrate and got a search warrant, and then they executed it. And in the vehicle, they find a Ruger SR 5.56 .223 caliber AR-15 style rifle. They verify that it meets the definition under the law of a firearm. And then they are like, oh, well, it just so happens that you're a convicted felon. So that's where we are. So what happened to Mr. Barris? Well, let's pull up this notification that the Department of Justice let us have last summer. Wednesday, June 12th, 2024, Casper man found guilty on federal firearm offenses for being a felon in possession of firearms and ammunition. The verdict was reached on June 11th following a 2-day trial held before U.S. District Judge Kelly Rankin. Well, sentencing happened a few months later. So in September of 2024, the title reads, Casper man sentenced to 90 months on a federal firearms offense. Frank Berris of Casper, Wyoming, was sentenced to 90 months in federal prison. That would be 7 years and 6 months in federal prison for felon in possession of firearms. So all I'm saying, guys, is being right that important? It might be. I'm not here to tell you what to believe in, okay? If you want to believe that you live in a, fantasy world where the only person who knows what's going on is you, as strange as that sounds, as if you really believe that you're Truman in the Truman Show, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just telling you that if you brush up against the law like this, they don't care what you believe. And whether you consider it to be kidnapping or not, almost everybody except you believes that you are wrong. And I've never seen a person prevail in any sort of formal court, anything, with this argument unless it was a situation where they just didn't want to deal with them. And that's what happened with this traffic stop. The police officer was smart enough to say, this guy's going to kill me or I'm going to kill him. I don't want to do this. It's not worth it. I'll file a warrant. We'll get him later. And, I think it's stupid. I think it's stupid you should have to have a driver's license. I think it's stupid you should have to have a hunting license. I think a lot of the things that the government forces on us is unfair. And it probably does violate some fundamental right on some level. But the bottom line is, you either going to live as freely as you can, depending on how you think that impacts your freedom, or you're willing to die to not give a single inch. And that's your choice. And I'm not, I've got to make my own choice. You've got to make your own choice. So I'm not saying that you should do things the way I should do them. I just think it's important that people understand what the consequences are before they make that decision. I think you have to make an informed decision based on a lot more information than watching that video would have led you to believe happened at the end. So that's the reason I decided to make this. And in cases where people file these UCC 1 liens that are just complete, they get on these websites and they buy these packets, and the packets are full of just garbage. It doesn't make any sense. The language is from like overseas courts. It's stuff that doesn't refer to the United States law in any way whatsoever. And what happens is these guys end up in prison, and they have all these lawyers that they think are part of this system that they don't believe in, that are just, out here being idiots. And it's them who think that we should be the ones that go out there and get them out of prison so that they can continue to operate in this fairy tale existence of theirs. But either way, again, you get to choose what you believe. I get to choose what I believe. But there's a guy in Tennessee named Cromwell. In the mid-2010s, he ends up backing his truck sort of recklessly down a hill in Oak Ridge, Tennessee on a 4th of July celebration, and he ends up killing somebody. He's charged with reckless homicide, and he's convicted. And he ultimately gets like 12 years in prison. Well, in the process of being charged, he decides he's going to file all these liens, and he does it against like the district attorneys and the attorney general. And there's like 5 or 6 of these defendants that end up doing this. That guys, the lawyers that he despised, that he didn't think were any value, they actually got his conviction for the homicide overturned at the appellate level, and he would have gotten out had it not been for the fact, or at least had the opportunity to have a new trial and potentially gotten a reduced sentence or something. Had it not been for the fact that he filed all these fraudulent liens, he ends up in Tennessee. If you file a fraudulent lien, the law equates that to stealing that amount of money from somebody. And so when you file $1 million fraudulent lien, it's the same under the law as stealing $1 million for somebody. And that's an A felony. The jury convicted him, and the court sentenced him to 25 years for the fraudulent liens. And the court upheld that sentence in 2021. So regardless of what happens with his homicide, he got a new trial at the appellate level for the homicide. Regardless of what happens with that, instead of using the lawyers that ultimately would have freed him from the conviction to, even if he saw it as a fraudulent game, to play the game. He did it his way, and he went and filed a bunch of garbage liens on people, and now he's sitting in prison for the better part of his life because he's an old man, and he probably won't survive this amount of time in prison. So anyway, in closing, guys, you can believe whatever you want to believe. I'm not trying to tell you what to believe, but I do think that it's important to be informed as to the nature of the consequences for everything that you choose to do. And so I didn't make this video to talk crap or throw shade on any creator or to chastise the sovereign national or state national movement. None of that. I just think it's important that you should see all sides of it. There's 3 sides to every story: side A, side B, and the truth. And seeing one side, it would be easy to think, man, I should do that in my next encounter with law enforcement. And as an attorney, I would say that is a terrible idea. But ultimately, you have to decide what you're willing to give up your freedom for. And maybe it's important enough for you. And I suspect it was important enough for Frank Berris to do that. And that's fine. He got to make the choices that ultimately steered his life in whatever direction it was steered. And he got to be in total control over that up to a certain period of time. But the government will not forget you if you make the kind of impression on them that Frank Berris did. So anyway, that's all for this one. I hope you got something out of it. To anyone who I offended, I apologize. But you know what? I'm not here to make content for a particular audience. My loyalty is to the truth. My loyalty is to the facts. I'm just giving you my legal opinion. That's the value I think I bring to YouTube. And you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to support my channel, and that's fine. But I'm always going to tell you the truth, whether I think it's what you want to hear or not. So anyway, please remember to go over to Substack and sign up for the newsletter. It's absolutely free. There are paid tiers for people who want to add extra support and have the ability to do that. And that's something that I'm grateful for. If you can do it, if you can't, that's okay. The posts will always be free. I may have some audio or video versions later that only go to paid subscribers, but the actual posts themselves will always be free. You'll always have an opportunity to see sort of what my backstage, behind the scenes ideas are over on Substack. And that's where you'll be able to interact with me the most. So thank you guys for sticking out the video. If you don't want to go over to Substack, or you don't like to read and you're not interested in joining on a separate platform, you can still support the Southern Draw Law channel monetarily. I'll post my Venmo and PayPal links both here on the screen as well as in the description. Please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment on the video. Check out some of the other videos on the channel and leave a comment on there as well. Until I see you again, take care. Always film your interactions with the police and keep your evidence to yourself.